So most players believe that once they finish Persona 3 Reload, they have seen everything the game has to offer. They climb Tartarus, defeat the final boss, fuse their strongest personas and close the game, thinking they have fully experienced it. But the truth is much stranger than that. Because hidden inside Persona 3 Reload are items that the overwhelming majority of players will never even see during their first playthrough. They are tied to systems, events, and challenges that the game barely explains to you at all. Some of these items only appear if you complete extremely specific quests. Others only exist if you defeat the hardest boss in the entire game. And one of them only appears after beating the game on its most brutal difficulty. Which means there are players with hundreds of hours in Persona 3 Reload who still have never encountered these items. So today we are going to break down 5 items hidden in Persona 3 Reload that most players will never obtain. By the end of the video, you will understand how deep the game's hidden systems really go. Most RPGs follow a very predictable pattern when it comes to rare items. If something is powerful, you usually obtain it in one of these 3 ways. 1. You find it in a late game dungeon. 2. You buy it from a powerful merchant. 3. You obtain it after defeating a specific and hard level boss. Persona 3 Reload appears to follow that same structure at first. You explore Tartarus, you open treasure chests, you collect materials, you craft stronger weapons. That's only the surface layer of the game, because some of the rarest items in Persona 3 Reload are not tied to combat at all. They are tied to hidden game mechanics. Hidden game mechanics, optional challenges, and narrative events that most players never fully explore. And understanding those systems is what separates a normal playthrough from a truly complete one. One thing longtime fans of the Persona series already know is that the games developed by Atlus love hiding secrets inside their systems. Fusion mechanics, hidden boss fights, optional request chains. Persona games rarely hand their best rewards at you directly after the game. Instead, they reward curiosity, which means if you're the kind of player who experiments with mechanics and explores every system in the game, you often discover things that most people never even realize that they exist. And Persona 3 Reload is filled with these kinds of hidden discoveries. So, item number 1, Reinstatement Form. Let's start with an item that many players probably picked up during the story, without realizing how unusual it actually is. It appears during a specific character event involving Shinjiro Aragaki because it's tied to the story. Most players don't pay much attention to it. They see the item appear in their inventory. The story continues and eventually the item becomes irrelevant. But this is exactly what makes it interesting. Persona games often use small items like this to reinforce the emotional weight of certain characters and certain events. The reinstatement form is not a combat item, it is not an equipment either. It's essentially a narrative artifact that represents a turning point in the story regarding Shinjiro. And because it's tied to a specific moment that only happens once, it becomes a quiet reminder of that event. I'm so sad, man. Which is why many players completely forgot that it even existed. But it's one of the more subtle examples of how Persona ties storytelling into this item system. But story items are not the only hidden things in Persona 3 Reload, because some items exist purely to expand the lore of the game's world. And most players never even read them. Item 2. Folded paper. The next obscure item is something called the folded paper. This item appears during an event connected to Takaya and the antagonists in the story. And just like the previous item, the reinstatement form, it's easy to overlook this one too. Most players see it appear briefly and move on without thinking about it. But if you actually read its description, it reveals small pieces of lore related to the game's antagonists. Persona games love hiding background information in item descriptions. Small details that add context to the world, and the folded paper is one of those subtle lore pieces that expands the story if you take the time to examine it. It's not powerful, it does not affect combat, but it's an example of how Persona loves to hide the narrative depth in places most players never even look. So far we've talked about the story-related items, but now we are going to move into something much rarer. Items tied to the deepest parts of Tartarus. Item number 3. Dead Moon's Husk. Dead Moon's Husk is one of those rare materials hidden in the highest floors of Tartarus. Unlike the previous items we discussed, this one actually has a gameplay function. It's used as a base material when forging some of the strongest weapons in the game. But the reason most players never obtain it is because of where it appears. Dead Moon's Husk only becomes available extremely late in the dungeon, and by that point, many players are already approaching the finale of the story, the end, which means they don't spend enough time exploring those hidden items and floors to gather rare materials. But players who dive deeper into Tartarus often discover that the dungeon hides far more crafting materials than the story does. Dead Moon's Husk is a perfect example of this. It's not required to finish the game, but it rewards players who continue exploring beyond the minimum path. Now we have covered all the story items and dungeon materials, but the next item is something very different because it's tied to the single hardest challenge in the entire game. Item number 4. Platinum Bookmark. If you ask veteran Persona players what the hardest fight in Persona 3 Reload is, the answer is almost always the same. Elizabeth. Elizabeth serves as the Velvet Room attendant and a hidden super boss of the game, and defeating her requires mastering every system Persona 3 Reload has to offer. You need optimized personas, carefully planned skill builds, and a deep understanding of combat mechanics. But even then, the fight can punish small mistakes instantly with her Magidalao. Most players never even attempt the battle, and among those who do, very few actually win. But if you manage to defeat Elizabeth, the game rewards you with a special key, a key item known as the Platinum Bookmark. This item acts as a proof that you overcame the hardest challenge in the entire game. But even the Platinum Bookmark is not the most obscure item in Persona 3 Reload, because there is still one item that almost nobody ever sees. Not because it's a difficult item to obtain in a fight, but because the challenge required to reach it is. So fifth and the most rarest Persona item is the Blue Envelope. The Blue Envelope is one of the most mysterious items in Persona 3 Reload. To obtain it, you must complete the entire game on Merciless difficulty. Merciless is the hardest difficulty setting in the game. Enemies deal enormous damage, mistakes are heavily punished instantly. Most players never even attempt the Merciless mode, and those who do often struggle to reach the ending. But if you manage to complete the game under those conditions, Elizabeth rewards you with the Blue Envelope. And once again, it acts as a proof that you overcame the most difficult version of the game. Its description reads like a cryptic message about completing a great trial, which makes the Blue Envelope feel less like an item and more like a symbol that pushed you through the game to its absolute limit. And this is what makes Persona 3 Reload such a fascinating RPG. Because even after finishing the story, there are still secrets hidden in systems most players will never fully explore. So now, I am curious, which of these items have you actually discovered during your playthrough? And how many of them did you know about before watching this video? Do let me know in the comment, because chances are there are still secrets in Persona 3 Reload waiting to be unfolded and found by you. So drop a comment and make sure you hit the like button and also do a subscribe, because I make Persona content like this every day and it would be a huge help to the community that I am trying to build here. So with that one, a brand new day, a brand new week for Persona fans. Have a good one.